Hello, this is Kathy with Duality Unfolding, and I have a little card reading for you about shining your light. So, I've got three groups for you to choose from, and in this reading, we're just going to look at the light inside you that you're hiding from the world, the light inside you that is hidden from you, like a way that you shine that you don't see. Sometimes it's hard for us to see ourselves the way the outside world sees us. And then lastly, what's blocking you from shining your light. So, if you if you feel like it's been a very long hermit phase for you, if you just feel like the world's kind of crazy and you're not sure how to come out into the world and be yourself, or if you just want a little reminder about how amazing you are, then this is the reading for you. So let's take a look at the choosing cards. So group number one, your first card is New Beginning with these beautiful little cherry blossoms and these little fishes. And the Puppy, Companionship. Okay, group number two, Luck with this four-leaf clover and the dragonfly. And the Cocktail, Intoxication. And group number three, we have Change. And the Game Console, Distraction. Okay. So as always, take all the time that you need to choose. The timestamps will be below, and I will see you in the readings. Hello, group number one. So if you chose the New Beginning and the Puppy Companionship card, this is your reading. So I'm going to be using the Yoga Tarot for your reading. And as I said, we're going to take a look at the light inside you, shining your light. I'm going to pull a card for, I'm going to pull a card for the light within you that you hide from the world. It's hard to be authentic sometimes. We live in a world that says to be yourself, but not like that. Be an individual, but also don't be so different and unique that it makes other people uncomfortable. And I'm not really a big fan of that. I think that we all have a light within us that needs to be shared with the world. That, self-expression is something that's really important, valuable, powerful. So I just wanted to do a reading and offer a little bit of encouragement in shining your light. Okay, so these oracle cards are from the Sacred Creator Oracle deck. So let's see. Let's take a look at the light within you that you hide from the world. Okay, so we've got the Strength card. And I feel like this is such a beautiful depiction of the Strength card. In the traditional depiction, there's a woman that's kind of prying open the jaws of a lion. And here we've got this beautiful kind of inner child depiction of the lion and the woman, right? And so we can kind of see this too as like this goddess that's kind of watching over, this child riding a lion. And I think that this is such a lovely kind of expression of the Strength card because at first glance, the Strength card kind of looks like, how do we learn to control this wild animal, right? Like, how do we learn to control, period? And a lot of us learn that control comes from forcing our will onto things. But really the beauty of the Strength card is learning how to co-create, to partner, to harmonize, to collaborate with people, beings, energies that are different from ours. Because when we really look at the power dynamic of it, the lion is always going to overpower the human. And so, as humans, we are kind of taught that you can control whatever situation if you just assert enough of your will. And it doesn't really work that way. That, we don't always want to overpower others. We don't always want to exert our powers. Sometimes we just want to find a way to be in harmony, whether that's us, hoping that this lion lets us kind of ride on top of it, or if we're the lion and we agree to kind of carry someone else or allow someone else to sort of override our free will, or, if we're kind of letting go of something so that someone else can have their way. Like, I don't know why the word coming to my mind is compatibility. That's not the right word. It's another word that I can't think of. Compromise. That sometimes we will choose, because this lion, maybe he doesn't want to carry this kid around, right? Like if I was a lion, I wouldn't want a kid riding on my back, or like this little girl, maybe she's like, oh, this is just my pet kitty. And she doesn't realize that this is like a full lion, that there's this compromise that happens that, sometimes we are able to be in control. And then other times, like we don't have control, this lion could sit down and she could just kind of slide off. And then over all of it, we have this really beautiful sort of, it reminds me of like a green Terra or a Kuan Yin with all the arms, like this beautiful goddess energy that's kind of watching over both of them, right? That, there's this sort of spiritual influence. There's a sort of spiritual kind of guidance over all of it. And so with this You Are Magic card, this number 1 and this number 8, it feels like the light that you're hiding from the world is this really beautiful magical ability that you have to create like harmony, to collaborate with people, to really bring people together. It feels almost like not networking, but like creating a safe space, being a moderator. That's exactly how it feels. Like you have this ability to moderate different groups of people. And it's almost like you have this, this like magic touch in a way, like not a physical touch, but like, there's this like magical element to your energy where you can create a safe space. You can create a space for harmony. It's almost like you can shift the energy in a room so that people that don't appear to get along very well, like can coexist in this space, because you're almost like you're able to diffuse this energy. Like there's what it looks like. What it looks like to me is like there's this room where there's people arguing, and then like, you see the argument and you're like, okay, I know I have to go in there, spirit guide me, spirit lead me. And then spirit kind of just drops some wisdom or something into you. And it's like you get this insight before you walk in, and the spirit, and spirit's like, hey, the energy, what's happening in here is this person's 5-year-old self and this person's 5-year-old self are fighting, and so you might see 2 grown adults, but what spirit has like dropped wisdom on you for is to let you know, like, these are childhood wounds that these people are playing out. And so knowing that there's these 2 kind of energetic 5-year-olds arguing, it's like the way that you approach that is going to be very different than the way that you would approach 2 adults arguing, instead of going in with 2 adults and being like, hey, everybody needs to calm down. Like, we're all professionals here. You approach it like 2 children arguing, and you come in and you're like, hey, like, what happened? Why is everybody so like, what happened? Why is everybody so upset? Like, and you kind of like it looks like you're having people take turns. Like, do you mind if he explains first, or do you mind if she explains first, and like letting both people talk, and you're not fixing anything. You're creating this space. You're moderating this energy to where like you're able to really bring down kind of the chaos and like give people space to speak, and then also give other people space to speak, you know, and not allowing people to interrupt. And I feel like it's very much like the light that you hide from the world is this very like beautiful kind of mothering energy without being a mom. So it's almost like the way that like, to me, like this mothering energy is like filling this space with love and calm and being able to gain people's trust, and then also delivering on what they need to feel safe, you know. And like I said, like in this moderation example, it's like maybe you let him talk first, and then it's her turn to talk, and he starts to interrupt, and like, you know, being this kind of gentle mother, you're like, hey, it's her turn to talk, okay? Like you can talk after she's done, you know. And being able to remember, like it's almost like you're able to create this space where you can diffuse this energy, but also allow everyone to feel seen and heard. And, you know, I think a lot of people don't get that. You know, they want it so much, but it's very hard to come by in this world where it's almost like everybody's jockeying to get their 15 minutes of not even fame anymore. It's like 15 minutes of attention and validation. And look at me, and like, I'm important, right? Like I matter, right? Please tell me I'm important. And so I feel like this is a gift that you have that is so, so, so needed in the world. Not to pressure you to stop hiding your gift, you know, but you are coming into a new beginning. So, but I think there's a lot of chaotic things happening in the world because we are in this time of like big energetic change. And I think for a lot of people, the logical solution is that someone needs to fix the problems. And so it's like, you know, how do we fix this? Well, people need to get paid more and that'll fix it. Or like rent needs to be lower and that'll fix it. And really like trying to get to the root of the issues. It's not that the only problem is not what we see at the surface, right? Like at the surface level, things are too expensive. Yes. But what is the energy that drives the CEO or the business to want to charge more so that they can get more, so that they can have more when they already have more? And then what is the thing that, you know, kind of leaves people feeling helpless and lost and empty, and like they can never do enough to like not even get ahead, but like they can never work enough to make enough to be comfortable. It's like there's like these very kind of deep, like subconscious, or like even just like at this really base human level of like this scarcity and like this greed and fear. A lot of it is just rooted in fear, you know? And so I think with this, your ability to like, you're really mothering, loving light, you know, is something that's so needed because it shines a really soft glow onto the things that we're afraid of, right? Because like our fears keep us kind of running in this like survival mode because we're trying to run away from them because we are too afraid to look at them, right? It's hard to look at the things that really scare us or that worry us, especially alone. But it's like if you have someone that comes in and kind of shines this light on things and, you know, kind of casts this soft glow on the monster under the bed, and you realize like, oh, like that's not a big scary monster. Like that's like, you know, it's like a hungry dog that is looking for some snacks, or, you know, like when we have someone with us to kind of shine that light, it doesn't feel as scary because we're not alone. And I feel like that is the magic of your light, is that, you know, you have this ability to shine this really soft light onto things, you know, and energetically be in the presence of people, you know, so they're not alone, but like having someone to shine that light on this scary thing, it, I feel like is really like the healing that people need, you know, because like when, you know, to go back to this like CEO example and like, you know, the person that can't make enough money to get out of survival mode, like that CEO probably has some kind of fear rooted in like not having enough, you know, and then this person that doesn't have enough probably has another fear like related to something else, and having someone that can show this soft light on both sides might bring this conclusion that like you're both afraid, like you both have fear rooted in the same thing and you're actually not so different. And that like when we continue to see people as other than us, different than us, it's so easy for us to not care about them, you know. But having someone create this really gentle space and shining this really soft light on things, it's like we kind of see like, oh, we're all operating out of this same root fear of there not being enough, which is really about me not being enough. And that like we all have kind of picked that programming up from someplace, you know, and that we all kind of have these same wounds, and that we all kind of need that like really beautiful mothering energy and that space where it's like, it's okay for you to be here, even if you don't feel like you're enough. It's okay for you to like share your fears, even if, you know, you feel like you're the only one that has them, because you're not. So I feel like that's this beautiful gift that that you're about, this really beautiful gift of your own light that you're hiding from the world, that the world really needs right now. And so next we have the light that is hidden from you, right? So this really beautiful light part of yourself that you don't see because you're you, and it's hard to see outside of ourselves. Okay, so we have this Knight of Pentacles. And what does your soul say? This Knight of Pentacles card is very, it's very, very disciplined. You know, we've got this rooster, which for whatever reason, it makes me think of like fire energy, like this passion, this like ability to make things happen, this ability to kind of speak up and scream when it's needed, when it's necessary. You know, because roosters crow, like when the, not crow, but well, is that the noise they make? I don't know. Roosters make their noise when the sun comes up to kind of let everybody know it's time to get the day started. But this yogi is very disciplined, right? This kind of, I don't even know what this pose is called. But like, this isn't something that you can just do on a first try, right? Like you have to build up this, not only arm strength, but like core strength. You have to build up this flexibility. Like you have to build the ability to not just like physically support yourself, but the discipline to continue to do this. I feel like this is one of those poses that like you are going to fail at it more times than you're going to succeed at it, right? But like you fail at it until you finally do it. And then it's like, okay, once you've done it once, it's like, okay, I could do this again. I could do it for longer. How do I get stronger in this? And like, okay, I can feel that like my core is weak and I need to work on my core or whatever. But I feel like this pose is very much connected to like the discipline of the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving knight in the tarot, but Knight of Pentacles, I feel like he's my favorite, but I think that's because I'm a planner. Like he is deliberate and intentional. Knight of Pentacles, and it could be male or female. It's not, you know, it's not gendered. It's not even energetic. Like it's not like a masculine or feminine energy. I feel like it's Knight of Pentacles is the intention, right? Knight of Pentacles is taking the time to think about what is the end goal and how do we backtrack to step one, which is where we are right now, you know? Like you have this ability to see things in like the big picture. You have this ability to work very like long term, but also you have this ability to really parse out your energy, that like you're not someone that is going to decide to run a half marathon and then on day one of training try to run 10 miles. You know, like, and I feel like that's this really important light, because we live in this world that like everything is so fast paced, right? That like, I want it now. I want it before I even knew I wanted it. Like, I need it immediately. I posted on social media. Why don't I have 400 likes? I ordered this on Amazon. Why isn't it at my door 20 minutes later? It's just very instantaneous. And some of the most valuable things for us to experience as human beings are the things that are hard won. You know, not to say like that it has to be difficult to win it, you know, like it just means that like there's time and energy and intention. There's a long-term vision that goes into it, you know, that like being able to make this plan and then watch yourself progress through it, right? That watch yourself meet these milestones, because a lot of the things that we want when we are in human form, it's not instantaneous. It takes time, you know, that like when we want to build a career, when we want to build a savings account, when we want to build a relationship, when we want to change our bodies, whether that's like losing weight or gaining weight, or, you know, being able to build stamina, or, you know, maybe be able to like take a longer hike, or even trying out like new places to explore. It's like sometimes they get farther and farther away and like the drive gets longer and longer. The ability to carry out a long-term goal, long-term plan. And this doesn't have to be years, right? For some people, long-term is like doing something for 4 weeks in a row consistently. That's, I mean, as human beings, time passes so fast, but it's also like when we're starting something new, the days that we put off starting can pass so much faster than, you know, having to get up 30 minutes early every single day to implement this habit. And so that fortitude that you have, that's the light that's that is hidden from you. That's the thing that you don't see. That's really such a beautiful light, because this is just the way that you are, you know, and it's something that like the world needs to see as well, or that the world actually does see all the time, that you probably don't give yourself credit for. That there's a lot of people that look at you and they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. Like, I don't know how you have the discipline to do that, or I don't know how you've been doing that for this long. Like, I just couldn't do that, you know. And sometimes we are a representation of what people are capable of, you know, just like sometimes we can be a permission slip for other people. That like, you know, the times that we come into a room, you know, and we're able to kind of mediate or like calm the energy down. It's like, you know, yes, this is a gift that I have, but like this is also something that you can do. Like, you can choose to come into a room where two people are fighting and not try to overpower them, but just sort of, you know, kind of hit the pause button, like, hey, what's going on? Is everybody okay? You know, like there's no blaming there. There's not like any kind of control. And so I feel like there are people that you don't there are people that don't know you, that kind of watch you from afar, that have seen you do things for a long period of time. And it's just like, wow, you know what? I think I'm going to try that. I think I'm going to try it because, you know, like group number one, like, man, I'm seeing group number one coming to this track, like, I don't know, or coming to this park to like walk their dog for months and months. And like, I don't really want to go today, but I bet they're going to be there. So like, you know, maybe I should go too. Like, if they can make themselves go, then like I can make myself go too. And it kind of reminds me of something that my mom had told me. My mom's like super, super, super healthy. Like, she always makes like a smoothie in the morning, and like she puts like beets and beet juice and like kale and like all these things that like have a lot of vitamins in them that like I don't think that they taste good. And so I thought she just did it because she liked the way it tasted. And like we were talking, and this had to be like a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago. And she was telling me, like, I don't take this every day because I like it. She's like, I take it because I know it's good for me. I don't like the way it tastes. That's why I just try to drink it really fast. And it was like, I don't know why that like blew my mind. But I think that that's like a really interesting thing about human beings is that we see people do things and it looks so easy for them. And it's not that it's easy, it's that they don't allow the uncomfortable part, the negative part, the unpleasant part to deter them from doing it. You know, like I've never seen her like make a face or grimace or talk about how she didn't like how it tasted, because like the intention was to eat, to drink this smoothie every day because it's giving her all of these nutrients and vitamins and minerals that she needs that she knows she's not getting from her other food, because her health is really important to her, because she wants to stay mobile and limber, and like just she wants her body to continue to function really well as she ages, you know. And so I feel like that's really a beautiful illustration of this Knight of Pentacles and, you know, what does your soul say energy, that like we look at spirituality as like this really magical thing where it's like, oh, and you're a spiritual person, like you just kind of flutter through life and you have like a good luck fairy that's always on your shoulder. And it's like, no, sometimes spirituality and like the metaphysical and like the energetic is understanding that like I don't have to suffer through discipline, right? That discipline isn't suffering, and that like, you know, I can choose to do hard things every day that are beneficial for me in the long term, and I don't have to fight them, I don't have to resist them. But in the same token, like I don't have to punish myself with them. If I'm having a day where I just physically don't feel good and I can't get into this pose, then I acknowledge that like my body's not a machine and that I need rest. But the days that I'm like, I don't want to because I want to keep scrolling on Instagram, you know, maybe that's the time where it's like, hey, let me just work on this for 5 minutes and then we can go back to scrolling, you know, because we all have a mind and an ego that's like, I want to be comfy. So I feel like that's something that, you know, that intention, that discipline, that fortitude is this light that is within you that you don't see. And so finally, we're going to look at what is blocking you from shining, really just shining in general. Like what's blocking you from feeling like it's okay for you to shine in the world. And we've got the wheel. So we've got this Wheel of Fortune card. Wheel of Fortune card number 10 and Collaboration of Souls again. So we've got this here. I love it. This Wheel of Fortune card, for me, it feels like you're coming out of, it feels like circumstances. So for a while, you've been in some kind of circumstances where you were either given evidence, like you were kind of shown that it's not safe for you to shine. Maybe that like you were kind of attacked by people, you know, that like not physically attacked, but it feels like we can have these really kind of passive aggressive things happen, right? Where maybe we like show up and we are being a little bit more authentic and we get sort of shunned, or somebody like makes a little remark or they say something that's kind of passive aggressive and it kind of shuts us down, right? Where we're like, oh, okay, this is not the space where I get to be me. This is the space where you are expecting everybody to conform. And so this could be like a work situation, this could be school, this could be a place that you lived. But it feels like whatever that circumstance was, there's like the wheel is turning, you know, like something is changing. So it could be something as tangible as like maybe you quit your job and work somewhere else. You know, maybe you got a new job, maybe you graduated from high school and you're going into college, maybe maybe you had an internal change where you're like, I don't really care what people think of me. Like, I don't really care for like, or I'm not going to allow the little social shunning or the passive aggressive remarks to deter me from being myself, because we can always choose, right? We can choose to hear words from people and recognize that like that negativity is something that they're projecting onto us that's really about them. Like they're uncomfortable with your display of authenticity because they're uncomfortable with being their authentic self. So that has nothing to do with us. We can decide like, okay, I'm rubber and you're glue. Or we could just kind of see that like, okay, like you're saying not nice things because you have, like you have stuff that you're working on that has nothing to do with me. We can decide we don't want to be around those people. We can decide that when people react to our authenticity, or when people react to our light in a negative way, that is just an indication to us that like we don't need to continue to expend energy in those places. It can also be something that like with this collaboration of souls card, it can be something that you are tired of being without. And so what I mean by that is like with this collaboration of souls card, like you're wanting to call in this soul family, this soul friendship, this soul tribe, for lack of a better word. Like you're looking for your people. And so I feel like sometimes like when people talk about like soulmates or soul family, it's like looking for this really deep connection with other people. And I don't think that every soul connection that we have is instantaneous, that it's like lightning. I feel like sometimes it's just as valuable to have the sort of like small, slow, positive connections with people, right? So, you might, like I had an instance where I went to a farmer's market and I was talking to a vendor, and like she was just a delightful person to talk to, like just really lovely, and then there was another customer that was there and I interacted with her as well. And like we just all were kind of talking about, our own spiritual practices, and that like one of them didn't care for the term spirituality because of how it's shifted and how it's so big now that like it means something different for everyone, and that like that term doesn't resonate for her anymore. And and for me it's like it's kind of made me question like, okay, what does it mean, and like is what is spirituality versus a spiritual practice. And we didn't exchange phone numbers. We didn't make a date to hang out again. It was just like this really lovely interaction. And I feel like when we are able to be, when we are able to be our most authentic self, regardless of how other people react to our authentic expression, what it does is it allows us to exercise that authenticity so that it's a muscle we can use more, but it also attracts and like brings in those kinds of connections, where it's like we get to interact with people, and it's like, these women could be part of my soul family. I don't know. I can't see a year into the future, or it could just be a lovely message for me that like, even though I live in a really like rural Republican state, I'm not the only person that is a little bit like spiritual and witchy and into magic, even though it feels like I'm the only one sometimes, And so if you have felt like you want to continue to shine your light, but you're just worried about those negative reactions, like I would encourage you to, as much as it feels comfortable for you, to continue to do so in small ways. And as you continue to do it, it's going to be easier for you to collect evidence that the circumstances have changed, right? That either people are going to get more comfortable with you being the weird one wherever this is, or you're going to build that I don't care muscle to the point that like it's not going to bother you anymore if people stare or if they make comments, or if you're not well received, because when you are well received, that it's people that you're collaborating with like on a soul level. So yeah, so this has been your reading on this light inside you that the world needs you to stop hiding, the light within you that you don't see, and then also like the block that's keeping you from shining your light with the world. And I feel like it's something that's really, it's kind of disintegrating. Like it almost feels like it's not really a block as much as it's like a little bit of a fog, and like as you continue to move through the fog, eventually it clears up, right? So yeah, group number 1, this has been your reading. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, I would love it if you would like or subscribe or comment. I always love reading your comments, and I just hope that this was helpful and that you have a lovely day or night or morning whenever you're watching this, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, group number 2. So if you chose this luck card and the cocktail intoxication, this is your reading. So I will be pulling 3 tarot and 3 oracle cards for you, and we are going to look at the light within you that you are hiding from the world. And then we will look at the light within you that is hidden to you. So this is a way that like you shine in the world that you aren't able to see. Maybe you take it for granted because it's just really a part of who you are, how you operate. Or it might be something that you didn't realize was this beautiful light that you have, but maybe somebody's mentioned it before, and you're like, oh, I don't see myself like that. So this could be confirmation for some of you, and this could be, I don't know, just enlightening, no pun intended, and just enlightening, lighting up something about yourself that you didn't see. And then finally, we will look at what is blocking you from shining your light with the world. Okay. Okay, and this is the Good Karma Tarot that I've pulled tarot cards for you from. And then this oracle deck is the Sacred Creators Oracle. And something that's coming to mind about these 2 cards is that there's I don't want to say like a duality about them, but like with dragonflies, like they exist in 2 different worlds. And so they're born in the water, and then once they grow their wings, they live in the air. They return to the water, but they never live back under the water like they did when they were first born. And so the medicine, the animal medicine of the dragonfly is being able to exist in 2 different worlds at the same time, right? And so to me, it's something that is... like I worked when I was in the military, I worked for like a security agency, and every time I would go to leave like for lunch or like maybe like leave for an appointment, it was usually in the middle of the day. If I had to go to my car to do something, I would always see dragonflies. And there wasn't like water near where I worked. And so I always thought it was weird that there's these dragonflies. But it was, when I started to learn about animal medicine, like it really kind of felt like just like a kind of a lovely, just like a little nod or like a little hello from the universe that like, hey, you are a very spiritual, magical person, but you're working in a very kind of dense 3D environment. And so, now that you've kind of stepped away from it, because like it was just such a big place. So like you had to walk really far, like for parking, unless you got there like super early, which of course I never did. So, or if like you left for lunch and then came back, it's like the parking's always terrible. But it was just kind of this reminder to me that like, hey, once, when you live in 2 separate worlds, right? That like when you're at work at this agency, it's very black and white and very like, rigid and structured, but then like the person that you are outside of this, like you're a very spiritual person. And like just that there's some magic in that, right? Being able to navigate two completely different worlds, and still not lose part of yourself to either one, being able to hold that duality. And then I feel like this is a really positive side of it. And then with the cocktail, when we have one too many, like it shifts us, right? That like alcohol is a depressant, that like we can have one cocktail and just have a really great time, and then we can have like too many and things just go kind of sideways, right? Like our personality can shift, our mood can shift. And in the same token, there's the rise of the mocktail now, where there's a lot more people that are choosing sobriety for a variety of reasons, whether that's because they have addiction, and they've, overcome it, or they just don't like the way alcohol makes them feel, or they're just more health conscious. But, it's kind of existing in two different worlds, right? That like the world of alcohol and the world of sobriety are two very different spaces, and that some people can operate a little bit in both, and like some people can't. Whether you can or cannot doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't make you better than anybody else. But kind of having this duality of understanding that, like, gosh, that even if we are someone that is deeply rooted in sobriety, or we're someone that's deeply rooted in spirituality, we live in a world where people can choose to not live that way, right? We live in a world that like people don't believe in anything spiritual, just like we live in a world where people cope by drinking, so it's like just kind of this duality that like we're all in the same place having different experiences. So felt the need to share that. So hopefully that resonates for someone. So let's look at these first two cards. What light within you are you hiding from the world? We've got the Two of Coins and Rise. Wow. Okay. So this Two of Coins, this is very much like, this is pretty much exactly what I was already talking about, which is funny. The duality, being able to balance two things at one time, that like, sorry, I just got quiet because like what I'm feeling is that like somewhere along the way of life, you got the message that you can only be one thing. And that if you come across as two different things to people, then you seem flaky, you seem unsure, you seem like, insert any other negative judgmental label that has nothing to do with anything. But like your ability to exist in two different worlds, your ability to choose, the option that works best for you in the face of people that disagree with it, like that is your superpower. That I think the hard thing about like being labeled as flaky, or being labeled as like unsure, or being labeled as someone that's like very malleable and changes their mind a lot, is that it's got this negative connotation to it. It almost has this connotation that person that's flaky, or that changes their mind, or that they're unsure, like that it's a flaw, right? That like we've been socialized that like being very decisive is strength. And it's like you can be you can be decisive and always make the wrong decisions. And I don't think that's a strength. What do I know? As someone that has made quite a few not great decisions in my life, I don't think that being decisive was the best option for me in those times. I think I should have been a little bit more open-minded. just reflecting back on my own personal mistakes. But I would invite you to remove the judgment that someone else has put on you, and look at the really positive parts of changing your mind, like of being open-minded. Because when we allow ourselves to be a little bit non-committal as we continue to gather information, then what this frees us up to do is to make the best decision for ourselves. So I was talking to a friend about dating, and they were telling me that they, are not, they're being really authentic with someone that they're like just starting to get to know. But they kind of feel like they're giving off this like non-committal vibe, that like this other person might be like, oh, they're not serious about anything, or like, well, they just, like they kind of want to do these things that are a little bit like, not like, it's not anything like super crazy. It's kind of like if you started dating someone, and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to live in a foreign country. I've always wanted to live in Italy. That is like my end goal, that's being authentic, cause that is what the person's always wanted. But I think this kind of way that we're socialized to judge our desires off of what other people might think, like that part of their mind might be like, well, this person's not going to want to date me if they think I'm just going to leave for Italy sometime soon. And it's like, I mean, that could be true. But do you know this person well enough to know that you want to date them? Or are you just like getting to know them? Are you sharing things? Or like, maybe they want to live in a foreign country too. Maybe they don't really care where they live. Maybe 2 months from now, you realize that they're not a good person and you don't want to continue to date them, and so I hope that makes sense as far as like this illustration of like being open-minded, that like if we make a hard decision too early before we have all the information, that can be really disastrous, right? Like, I mean, we see it all the time with like well, maybe not all the time, but like with celebrities where like they get engaged or they get married and they haven't been together very long, and then the marriage gets annulled like 6 weeks later or a year later or 6 months later. And it's like, is it the end of the world? Like, no. But like if you're someone that's ever been divorced, like I mean, there is like emotional pain to it, but it's a extensive legal process, right? Like the legal process of getting married is very easy, for the most part. Like there's not a waiting period in most states. Like you just pay your money for the license and you both sign a little piece of paper and like you're married. Divorce, the legal process for a divorce or separation is much, much more complicated, and so it's like when we are decisive without all the right information, then there's a consequence on the back end. And so I say all of that to share that like sometimes being unsure, sometimes being willing to change your mind, sometimes being non-committal is really beneficial, because it's like if we don't know enough information, we can't make good decisions for ourselves, and so whoever has like made you feel like it's wrong or it's bad about you that like you don't make hard, fast decisions, like I would invite you to kind of look at like look at those people and look at their lives. Like, is that the life that you want to live? It probably is not. I feel like a lot of times when people don't agree with the way that we live, like it's because they have a totally different lifestyle than ours, and like they don't stop to think that like maybe we don't, like I don't want to live like you. Like just like I'm sure there's people that look at my tattoos and they're like, oh my God, I would never. And it's like, great. I would tell you not to get tattooed then. Like if you could never imagine like being heavily tattooed, it's probably not for you, just like I would never want to own a restaurant. Like that does not sound appealing to me. But maybe someone whose passion is like business or cooking, they're like, what do you mean? It's the best thing ever. Like for you, not for me. So I feel like as we continue to live in a world where there's like more and more and more information, like there's information overload, I feel like this light that you hide from the world, it's going to be something that, like with this Rise card, it's going to be something that people start to see as like a really positive quality, because I think the reason that people choose to be decisive and move really quickly in decision making is because the in between, this balancing and rebalancing where you kind of live, is very, very uncomfortable for most people. And I feel like the fact that you are able to, I don't want to say withstand, because it just sounds kind of like suffering to me, but the fact that you're able to be in that in between, in that uncertainty, in that discomfort, like that's a huge superpower. Like a lot of people can't be in that uncertainty, and so it's like some people would rather just make a decision and be done with it than even worry about making the right decision. It kind of reminds me of traffic, that like there are people that will be in traffic and they won't use their GPS to see like, okay, where's the traffic jam at? You know, like they're just like, oh, I can't sit here. I've been sitting here for 5 minutes and I got to pull a U-turn and drive somewhere else. And so it's like, if you look at your GPS, like a lot of times it'll tell you like where the accident is, right? And so it's like, okay, maybe if you're like, or not the accident, well, it could be the accident, could be like construction, could be whatever. Like if you're 3 miles from it and you can see it's like 3 miles of traffic, it might be better for you to turn around and go a different way. Because if your GPS is like, yeah, you're going to be here for an hour, it's like, okay, I don't have an hour to be here. Or you could look at it and see like, oh, okay, like I am right at the pinnacle of it. And like, I just need to be a little bit patient because it clears up like 500 yards past where I am, you know. And so it's kind of just like, okay, I'm not comfortable, but how do I gather more information before I make a decision so that I don't make a bad decision, right? Because you could not look at your GPS and be like, oh, I can't be here anymore, and then turn around and try to find another way, and it takes you like 40 minutes to get to wherever you needed to be instead of waiting 10 minutes and like getting there in 20 minutes. So that ability to be in the discomfort and also continuing to look for and choose the things that are beneficial for you while you are uncomfortable, I feel like that's a huge superpower. And for whatever reason, the things that are coming into my mind have to do with like news, you know, where we get information in the news so quickly now, and like, especially with like social media. And then it's like you find out something maybe an hour later and it's like, oh, that wasn't true, now that they've had more time to research it. Like I feel like your open-mindedness is something that like used to be seen as like uncertainty, and now as we continue to progress forward with like fast news, fast information, people are going to start to see that as a superpower and are going to kind of look to you like, oh, how do you just wait for more information? And it's like, well, like it's uncomfortable, but I'm more uncomfortable with making the wrong decision than I am with being in the waiting period. You know, just like some people are like, I'm more uncomfortable waiting, I'd rather just make a bad decision. So yeah, that is the light that you are hiding from the world. That I think as you just continue to be who you are, be how you are, like people are going to see how valuable that is. And you're going to see the world start to shift and value that train of thought much, much more. Next, we have the light inside of you that is hidden from yourself. Like it's a part of yourself that you just like don't see, that you kind of take for granted, that I feel like you've never seen this. You've never seen this about yourself, but lots of people see it about you, and it's the Hierophant card. The Hierophant is like the teacher, the mentor. In the traditional tarot, it kind of has to do with religion and tradition and things like that. But I feel like here, find your sacred flow. Here, it's like you have this ability to share wisdom and knowledge in a way that like people can understand. And it's you have this way of whatever you share information about, you know enough about it that you can share you can share information on one topic in two completely different ways, so it's almost like it would almost be like if you were bilingual, like your knowledge of language is expansive enough that you can say the same thing in different languages. But like the wisdom that you have around the information that you share, the topics that you talk about, like you have such a in-depth knowing of what you're talking about that you can explain it in very different ways to people. So it makes me think of when I first started working in IT and I was trying to explain like folder permissions to someone, and they were not an IT person. And so the way I explained it was like a building, like an apartment building, like a condo, like a condo where it's like maybe the first floor is open to everybody, but like depending on where you live in the condo, like your little electronic key, or maybe a hotel's a better example, your little electronic key only works to take you to the floor that your room is on. And then once you get to that floor, your key only works for the room that you've reserved. Like you can't use your key on the first room that you go to, just like you can't use your key to go to the 4th floor when your room is on the 7th floor. And so like being able to kind of relate an example that everybody understands to something that is much more kind of niche makes things easier to understand for people. But I feel like you are able to do that like in so much more of an in-depth way. And it's almost like you know what people know and what people don't know. And that I feel like that knowing is like, you would not call yourself psychic. And I think a lot of people would not call you psychic. But I think that you and other people often take for granted that you know things about other people that like is a lot deeper than you would pick up on like at a surface level. And I feel like this is getting really like, gosh, I hope this isn't getting too like convoluted or complicated. It almost feels like, you're teaching somebody and you make a cultural reference that like this person gets, but this person doesn't get, but like nobody's wondering like why that cultural reference makes sense to them. It's just like, oh yeah, like it all clicks and people are just like, it's making sense, let's keep going. And so I feel like that's just like it's just like a really beautiful, magical thing about you. And especially like with these light rays kind of coming out, I feel like you just have this knowing about things. I love that the hand is over the heart chakra, over this little locket. Like it's, like you're just very tapped in. You're very tuned into like, it's almost like this soul wisdom. I think a lot of people get kind of downloads from God's source spirit. Like your soul has a lot of wisdom that it's carried through lifetimes, that like it kind of, it's almost like it's almost like you have a really big like wisdom bank account inside of you, if that makes any sense. Like you don't have to check the balance. You don't need to, like, it's not even something you need to be aware of. Like it's like that knowledge is just there, and it's like it just pops up whenever it's needed. And I feel like it's something that you didn't notice about yourself, but like now that you've watched this, it's something that like is gonna happen and you're like, oh, that was my soul. Like, but it's gonna be something internal to you, right? Like you're not gonna be telling people my soul told me this, because I think that that you feel like that's kind of weird to share with people, and possibly the people around you are not really into like past life things or soul wisdom, so it might be weird as well. But the times that you're able to share information that you shouldn't know about people, that is when you are in that sacred flow. That's when you and your soul are kind of, you've got this really beautiful spiral, like you and your soul are just kind of working, you're just doing your thing, sharing the wisdom. So I love that. It's such a beautiful thing. And then finally we have what is blocking you from shining your light in the world. And it's the Knight of Wands. Okay, let's see what else is here. Oh, cut the cords of doubt. Okay. This makes sense. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Also, I just want to point out that I was going to say we have sixes here, but we don't. 4 plus 2 is 6. 2 plus 6 is 8. 1 plus 2 is 3. 5 plus 7 is 12, which reduces to 3. So these are 6 and that's 6. Okay. Don't mind me, just doing some little numerology things that for some reason 6 jumped out at me. I don't know if maybe 6 means something to you, but this Knight of Wands, the Knight of Wands is, he's not the fastest moving knight in the deck. He's the second fastest, but wands, are about fire, action, passion. Knights are about action. So it's interesting that this Knight of Wands, who is about action, who's about, taking action, is looking to the side. And so to me, like, this cut the cords of doubt, like the thing that is blocking you from shining your light more in the world is that there's a lot of self-doubt. And I feel like it comes from like whoever, if it was a person, if it's an ideology, if it was just a worldview, if it's multiple people, if it was a life circumstance, whatever taught you that it's not okay to, like, that being undecided is bad, that being non-committal is bad, changing your mind is bad, weighing your options, being unsure, like whatever taught you that that is bad or wrong or that you shouldn't do it is the thing that has been instilling the doubt in you. And so that doubt is blocking you from shining more of your light with the world. And I feel like I've talked your face off about like how it's a great thing to continue to weigh your options, like to gather more information before you make a decision. Because the one thing that you don't get enough credit for is that when you know and you are good with a decision, you make the decision and you stick with it. It just takes you longer to make your decisions because it takes you longer to gather information because making a decision is a big deal for you. And I think a lot of people see a decision-making process that spans a longer period of time. For whatever reason, I think people assume that it's hard to make the decision. It's not hard for the person deciding to make the decision. It's hard for them to make the decision without all the information. And so I feel like if that resonates for you, like just to remind yourself that like once I have all the information I need, I don't have a problem making a decision. The problem is my decision-making process is not fast enough for you. And so if it's that person's decision that they've asked you to make for them, then it makes sense that they're upset, but that's not what's happening. Other people aren't asking you to make decisions for them. Other people are expecting you to make decisions for you on their timeline. And to that, I say, fuck that noise. Like whatever decisions you are making for yourself are your responsibility. And those people that tell you that you need to like speed up your decision-making process, like, unless it's something like, I don't know, life or death or something that like has to do with like legalities or like really strict timelines, like if you're not sure if you want to pay your taxes or not, like the IRS doesn't really care about your decision-making process. It's a system. We totally get that. If you have to make a life or death situation about your health or someone else's health, like that's different. And I don't feel like that's what we're talking about at all. I feel like the way that you operate in your life, the way that you make decisions for yourself bothers someone else to the point that they've instilled this doubt in you about your ability to make decisions. And so I just want to remind you that like you're a fine decision maker. Your decision process just takes longer than other people would like. And that's not your problem. That's not your problem. Like if they don't like how long your process takes, then like maybe they just don't need to ask you about your process, and maybe you decide like you don't want to share it with them. But whatever doubt was instilled in you about your decision-making process, that's the thing that's blocking you from shining your light. And with this cut the cords of doubt, like Okay, I know why the number 6 was coming through. Because I'm seeing like 6 of Pentacles and 6 of Cups. So 6 of Cups has to do with like childhood, kind of past life connections, which feels to me, past life and childhood kind of feel the same, like a past part of our life, a past time in our life, right? A past phase in our life. Like, I feel like 6 of Cups can be like our childhood, or it can be like someone we dated in high school, but like we're in our 40s now, right? It's like another lifetime is how it feels. 6 of Pentacles is about balance, about being able to give and take in a balanced, fair way. And I feel like that's why the 6 was coming up. So whoever instilled this doubt in you is someone from like an old part of your life, maybe someone from your childhood, but also like that relationship is out of balance. You know, I would venture to say that they are much more demanding of you than you are of them. I would even venture to call it like them being the taker and you being the giver. And so if that resonates, just take that for what it's worth. If you feel like you don't like that energy in your life anymore, like I would invite you to look into cord cutting. Cord cutting is not like cutting someone out of your life. Cord cutting is a meditative process, or even maybe journaling process if you like to journal, where you're cutting those negative cords. So to me, like cord cutting is almost like having, like the negative cords that can be created between us when we have conflict. It's almost like two people, this is a little graphic, but two people facing each other and they're just like flinging fishing rods at each other and like hooking into each other, and like the, you know, trying to reel in the rod and the line gets really tight and it's painful. It's not the end of the world, but also like they're not trying to remove their hook from us. You know, it's just like, oh, I got you hooked in and I'm just going to pull it really tight. And I feel like that's the negative cords that we create between each other. And cord cutting is just the process of, you know, getting a pair of scissors and cutting that line and like getting that hook out of your skin and handing the hook back to them, or like getting your hook back from them. Like you're calling back your own energy and you're cutting the cords that keep you negatively bound to this person. Sometimes it results in that connection being dissolved. Sometimes it just takes a lot of the heaviness out of a connection that you want to continue to have, you know. As you like read more about it, like there's people that do like cord cuttings with their families every night before they go to bed to just remove that negative energy from the day, because you know, I mean, being human is hard. And like, like sometimes we are not at our best and we say things we don't mean, or we do things on accident and it causes harm, you know? And it doesn't mean that we don't want those people in our lives. We just kind of want to, you know, just like let go of that negative energy and have a fresh start to the next day or the next hour or whatever. So, that cord cutting just kind of came up around that. But I feel like once, it's almost like these two sort of like they kind of are working together, right? That as you learn to see that like you're not bad at making decisions, you just need more time to process, you need more information than other people. There's nothing wrong with that. Your process is your process and it works for you. Your process doesn't have to work for other people. As you allow yourself to be the kind of decision maker that you are, like that doubt is going to start to dissipate. If you don't want to wait for that, then like I would invite you to look into cord cutting with, you know, whoever kind of has made you feel that way, that your process is wrong or bad, or that you need to change. So group number 2, this has been your Shine Your Light reading. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, I would love it if you would like or subscribe or comment. I love reading your comments. And yeah, I hope that this reading was helpful for you, that it was a good reminder of like the beautiful way that you shine in the world, and that you have a lovely day or night or morning or whenever you watch this. And I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, group number 3. So if you chose this change card and this game console distraction card with these little, they look like raccoons. This is your reading. So I am using the Wandering Star Tarot. as well as the Sacred Creators Oracle to pull cards for you. So we are going to pull some cards for the light within you that you're hiding from the world. The light within you that is hidden from you. It's something that maybe like you don't see about yourself, something you take for granted. I think it's hard for us to see ourselves from the outside. This could be something that like you have had other people mention to you that they see about you and they've shared with you, or it could be something that is totally new to you. And then lastly, we will look at what is blocking you from shining your light with the world. I'm having a time. Having a time shuffling these. Okay. All right. This little change card makes me excited for fall and for the weather to cool down, because it's been a very hot summer, hot and humid here in North Carolina. I can't wait for it to cool down, for the bugs to go wherever they go in the wintertime. For there to be no snakes out on the hiking trail, so that I can get out there and wander around in the forest without getting bit up by mosquitoes or running into snakes. They are not my favorite. Not in person. Well, not in the wild. Not in the wild. Not when they're poisonous. So, okay, so let's take a look at the light that you hide from the world. Okay, so we have this page of cups. Magic, love, and fun. And we've got this external validation, number 50. Okay. The light that you hide from the world is this really kind of, it's your really like gentle, tender heart. Like you're just a very loving, just real, like there's just the feeling of like gentleness, that you kind of hide from the world. And I think that it's because you've gotten a lot of external messaging from the world that like you have to be tough, you can't be so nice, you have to be different than you are. And I want to say that I'm sorry that, you know, the world's made you feel that way. I'm sorry that your softness, your tenderness is met with such a negative reaction by the people that are afraid to let themselves be soft and tender, because that's what that is. You know, that like when you're interacting with people that almost meet your gentleness with some sort of aggression, it's because they are so afraid to allow others to see the really soft, gentle parts of themselves. They see that as a weakness. They see that as like threatening, in that like, not that you are threatening, but like it's a threat to their safety for them to be soft and tender with the world. That, you know, either they've seen someone be exploited, they've been hurt in the times that they were tender. And I feel like you internalized a lot of that, right? Like the external reactions that you got, like they really caused like a lot of hurt for you. And so I say that because like her eyes look just so sad, you know, that we've got this message of like magic, love, fun around here, but like look how sad her little eyes are, you know, she's got these little puppy dog eyes. There's like a lot of hurt there. And to me, what it feels like is Like not as much like hurt, like, oh, what's wrong with me? But it's kind of this feeling of hurt. Like, why is this world such a, like, why is the world so hard? Like not hard in like difficulty, but like hard like a rock, you know? Like why is like it's almost like it makes you sad for the world that it won't allow itself to be more open to love. And it feels like it makes sense that you have learned how to hide like these tender parts of yourself. Because when we feel like we're not safe, it makes it hard to want to share, right? If like every time you extend your hand to shake someone's hand to meet someone new, like they stab you, eventually like you learn like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get hurt. So I'm just not going to do that anymore. But I feel like that tenderness that you have, like it's such a huge gift. Like it's such a beautiful light in the world because it really is an act of like bravery and courage to be like a gentle, loving, kind person in a world that is as chaotic and like really like almost harmful as it is. That there's people that like they don't think about the things that they say and do, and they don't even consider whether what they say or do is harmful. It just like they just kind of like spew words onto other people, and like they just don't give it a second thought. And I feel like when people do that to someone that is so like open and gentle and tender, that creates a shift in them, right? Because like I think we've all had an experience where like we have been shitty to someone for no reason and they were not shitty back to us, and like that will check you quick, right? When you like when you snap at somebody and they meet you with kindness and you're like, oh, I'm the worst human on the planet. Like I have to get my life together. Why am I like this? And I don't want you to feel like you have to be that way so that other people can learn. Like that's not what I mean at all, because that's a lot to take on. I feel like the times that you are just being your authentic self, if you are met with that, I just want to give you a reminder that like that reaction is about them. It's not about you. And also like that reaction can be an indicator that like you don't need to be around those people. Like that can be permission for you to almost like step away or avoid those people, or like, yeah, just not be around them. Because I think that a lot of times like what we're taught as like really sensitive or kind people is that like, oh, you just have to change yourself when you're around them. Why? Why don't they have to change themselves when they're around you? Right? And so it's like, it might just be easier for you not to be around those people. If you have to change who you are to be around them, maybe it's an indicator that that's not where you're supposed to be. Because I think that they would never think like, oh, this person's too kind. This is not where I'm supposed to be. Like, I feel like people that are really kind of hard and reactive and mean, like they just lack this awareness about things. And maybe that's just my belief that if people were actually aware of like how hurtful their words were, that they wouldn't say them on purpose. And so like when they say things that are hurtful or mean, it's because they're not aware of the power of their words. And that's not for us to teach. That's not for us to change, but just kind of taking that information about them and deciding like, do I care to be around this person anymore? And maybe you don't, and maybe that's the permission that you needed, that like you can be a kind, loving person and not be kind and loving to every person that is mean to you. You can just walk away, right? So I feel like you know how to make the best decisions for yourself. You know how it is most beneficial. You know how to navigate in the world in a way that feels good for you, like whether that's that you've learned to like kind of hide those tender parts of yourself. Maybe it's that you've learned that it takes time to show that. Maybe you've learned that like you just are going to be your kind, gentle self, and how people react to it is data for you to figure out, like to take in and analyze as far as like if you want to be around them anymore. But I would invite you not to hide this part of yourself as much as you have been. And again, I want to acknowledge that like it's painful to get that negative external validation. Like it's painful to get those external messages that like make you feel like there's something wrong with the way that you are. And so I'm not going to tell you to do things that make you uncomfortable, because that's not my place. You know how to make the best decisions for yourself, but I do just want to, let you know that like your soft, squishy, tender heart is such a valuable thing in this world to the right people. That like the people who also have soft, squishy, tender hearts, like they are a soft place for you to land. And that like when we allow ourselves to show that we're a little soft and squishy, it's easier for us to find other soft and squishy people. So, yeah, I would just encourage you to trust yourself, to be your most authentic self, to shine your light when it feels right for you. That you don't have to have a blanket masking coping mechanism for how you operate in the world. That it's safe for you to open up when you get that heart guidance to open up, because like our hearts have their own wisdom, and they I feel like our hearts can see other hearts the way that we can't, and that your heart will let you know like when it's safe to be your soft, squishy self around people, and maybe when it's not. So yeah, you don't have to hide your soft, squishy heart from everyone all the time anymore. So the next card we're going to look at is the light in you that is kind of hidden from yourself. It's a light about yourself that you don't see. And that is the Mother Star in this yes message. Okay. And balance. 1 + 4 is 5. Got this 5. In numerology, change is represented by the number 5. So lots of things are changing. And I love that like these two look very, very similar, but almost like it's almost like this is an older version of her. This is a more mature version, right? Like this is a younger version. This is an adult version. This Mother Star card it's kind of like a bonus card in this deck. But it's got this cup, just like we have here in the Page of Cups, but it's also got this sword. So and the wands. I don't see any. Oh, I guess there's a pentacle back here. So we've got all the elements. Oh, there's one right here. All the elements. The thing that you don't see about yourself is that you're very grounded and very balanced. That even though you have a really soft, squishy heart, like you have a very balanced sense of boundaries, like with the sword, with the 2 wands, like you are able to take the appropriate action, right? So like the times that you needed to close yourself off and protect yourself, I don't know if you kind of beat yourself up for that, but I would encourage you not to do that, because you're creating a balance for yourself, right? That like when you showed your really soft, tender parts to someone and they met those tender parts with like harm, the balanced thing to do is to put up those boundaries, is to take action to make space, right? That if I share with you and then I find out behind my back you stole from me, like what you've taught me is that I can't share with you. You know, that like that my sharing doesn't mean anything to you because you will take whatever you want when I'm not looking. So there is no point in me sharing with you. There is no point in me being around you. There's no point in me like allowing you to see what it is that I have because you're only here to take. You're not here to be grateful for what is shared with you. And so I feel like you're also learning like with this, for whatever reason, like these headphones and like these little scales, it's you're learning how to balance the external messaging you get with the internal knowledge. You know, like this even says like in balance, like internal, external, like even with like the opposites here, that it's like you're maturing in that heart wisdom, in that soul wisdom, you know, that like each time there's some kind of external message about you being too sensitive or too soft or like whatever, that there's this internal rebalancing that happens where it's like, I am the way that I am because like this is what, almost like this is what the world needs. This is what my soul chose. This is part of my journey. That like you've matured in a way I think that you don't see, that like the old you took the external validation and would like change yourself to try to conform. And like the growth that's happened in you now is that like the external input comes in, the reactivity comes in, and you're able to balance it with like your own internal dialogue, right? Where like if someone's like, oh, you're too sensitive, then what you've learned is that like, nope, I'm the perfect amount of like, I have the perfect sensitivity, that like I'm picking up on exactly what I need to pick up on, and that you're just upset that I'm seeing what you don't want me to see, but that you're showing me. You know, like it almost feels like when people say that you're too sensitive, what they're really saying is that they aren't sensitive at all, you know, because it's a spectrum, right? Because like when we look at like hot and cold, you know, like nobody's ever like being cold is bad, being hot is good. You know, I mean, maybe people say that, but it's like there's the spectrum of like they're opposites, right? And they're comparative, and that hot is what it is because we understand what cold is, and cold is what it is because we understand what hot is. I hope that makes sense. But I feel like the light in you that you don't see is how balanced and grounded, and how much you've grown. Like how detached you've become from other people's criticism. Really, I was going to say input, but criticism feels like it feels really strong. Like it doesn't feel like this is input. It feels like there's critical things that people have said to you, and that you've become really detached from it. That like there's this part of you that's grown that realizes that like, okay, the things that you're saying to me are a reflection of you. Like, yes, you're saying them to me about me, but this really isn't about me. This is about you. And that like there's some part of you that you don't like, and I'm showing it to you, and in response, you're just purging that negative energy by saying things to me because you don't want to fix it, but you don't want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to sit with the discomfort and grow. And so I feel like that's such a powerful thing. Like that's like, I just want to acknowledge that that's just like such a powerful thing. Powerful for you as like a human being, but also like powerful for like the amount of self-love that it reflects, to be able to know deeply who we are and not be shaken from our knowing of ourselves in the face of the negative external input that we receive. And so finally we have what is blocking you from shining your light. It's the Fool. So we've got purity, potential, risk, innocence, and desire. And find your sacred flow. Okay. The thing that is blocking you from shining your light is that you're it's not really a block. You're coming into a new phase, a new stage, I think, because of all this growth that you've done. Like the Fool is a new beginning. Again, we have the change here. Like you're coming into like an energetic space or like a real place or like a phase of your life, or it's some new journey. I feel like I can't really see exactly what it is, maybe because it's different for everybody. Like for some people, it might be like, graduating from college and entering the work world. For some people, it might be moving someplace else. For some people, it might be like ending a relationship and being single. Like it's some significant before and after, and you're coming into this after, like this after that's sparking a new beginning. And that new beginning is how you're going to kind of get over the block, and so it's almost like the block was the last phase that you were in, and that like you're coming into this new chapter, and like in this new chapter, like you're just going to shine your authentic light, because that's what's needed, that's what you want. That's the opportunity. So for some of you, you are making a change so that you can live a more authentic life, right? That could be something like moving to a new city, starting a new job, picking up a new habit. Like it could be something as small as like dyeing your hair purple because you've wanted to do it for so long, and now there's no reason for you not to. It's something that for you is a big change, shift, beginning, like a big signifier, I guess, is really kind of how it feels, because with the Fool, it's like she's taking the first step in blind faith, right? She's walking off of this cliff and, just kind of looking back like, oh yeah, that's it. It will catch me. Like something will catch me. There will be something there, and I don't really need to look where I'm going because I'm divinely held and protected. And a big part of that is finding like what your flow is, like finding what your, almost like what your natural flow state is, which I feel like is something that sounds really kind of intangible, right? Like it's not like you can go down to like the corner of 3rd and Main and that's where your flow state starts. It's not like you pick up a box of flow state at Walmart or something. But I feel like it's a new way of being, a new way of existing, and that like it's a beingness, right? So we don't know that we're in flow state until we're like in it. A lot of times like especially for like creative flow state, like we don't realize we're in the midst of creative flow until it's like, I don't know, like something happens where the sun sets and we're like, oh wow, how did it get so dark in this room? Or like, I'm hungry, like what time is it? Like, oh my gosh, it's 4:00, I haven't even eaten breakfast or whatever. It's like we don't realize we're in the flow until like we're really deep in it. And then like, our physical body's like, excuse me, I have to use the bathroom. We're like, oh gosh, I've been making whatever for like 4 hours or whatnot. And so like you're shifting out of this space of being afraid to be your authentic, tender, loving self because of past external feedback you've gotten. And you're moving into like this space of just kind of just being your most like squishy pink marshmallow hearted self, and going and just being in the flow of like, it's almost like following the love, that like, yeah, like just kind of, it feels like getting lost in conversation with strangers. It feels like planning to take a walk, and then finding a random trail and just following that. And, kind of, it feels like serendipity and happy accidents. It feels like just kind of following where your heart leads you. And then it's almost like going for a drive and like not having anywhere intentional that you're going. And then, happening on a random like little mom and pop restaurant, and then that becomes like your favorite place to eat in the new town that you live in. It just feels like it's not anything that's like hugely life changing, but it's like these really beautiful, small, delightful moments that really kind of shift you into a space of always being, or moving more towards always being that tender, loving. It feels very like glowy. Like it kind of feels like your natural state of being is kind of operating in the world with like this like fuzzy pink aura around you. And that in the past, like you would put a cap on it, right? Like you would put a raincoat over it, you know, so people couldn't see that you're pink and fuzzy, because maybe you had somebody like, I don't know, see your pink fuzziness and then they yell at you and throw like a mud ball at you. And you're like, oh, I got to hide this. It's not okay. And you're shifting into this space of just kind of floating around as pink fuzzy aura and like finding these places or being drawn to these places where like it doesn't bother people. You know, it's not that everybody's exactly like you, but it's like, oh, there's a fuzzy blue aura over there and there's a fuzzy green one. And it's like, you know, you're finding the spaces, you're being attracted into the spaces and the places where your energy is much more aligned. I don't want to say welcome, because it's like it doesn't even, you don't need to be welcomed into spaces. Like you're just kind of drawn into where you go, and it's like, oh, this is an alignment, you know, like this is I feel like, I don't know, I'm having a hard time explaining it. It's just like serendipity and happy accidents, you know. It's like, maybe it's like manifestation, right? Where you're like looking for this one really particular thing and then it's like you see it. You're like, oh, perfect. Great, it worked out. Like that's how it feels. It's not even this like, I mean, that's the flow state, right? It's not that you're like, I have to find this, you know, purple pair of shoes and like I have to find, you know, it's like, maybe you woke up that morning, you're like, ooh, I would love some purple shoes. And then you go and have lunch and then you're wandering around the mall and then you see the shoes, you know, and it's like, oh, and they're on sale. Like it feels like that, right? Where it's just, yeah, it just feels really lovely. And I have to say, I love this for you. Yeah. So group number 3, this has been your Shine Your Light reading. You know, we looked at the light that you've been hiding from the world, that, you know, totally understand why. We looked at the light within you that has been kind of hidden to you, this really beautiful, balanced, mature energy, and how much you've grown, right? How much you've learned a deeper sense of self-love, really. And then the thing that is blocking you from shining your light, which really isn't, there's not a block anymore. You're just coming into this new energetic like way of being where like you just, it's almost like you stepped into a timeline that has the perfect alignment for who you be. Yeah, I don't know another way to say it. And it's just really beautiful. It's really beautiful. So, yeah, changes are coming. Like it feels like this is the old way. The distraction is the old way. Like that you don't need to distract yourself from things anymore. That you can close the console and put it down, and yeah. But group number 3, this has been your reading. I hope that you enjoyed it. This is really just like you just have a really beautiful energy. I love it. It's really just super sweet. And so if you enjoyed the reading, I would love it if you would like or comment or subscribe. I just want to say thank you so much for letting me read your cards. And I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.